So here we are.
We won't judge too much.
I am recording. Yep, I'm recording. Handbook, React 2 assignments. Photo gallery. All right. Get to know React Router by building yourself a small photo gallery. Adding dependencies to your project. Here's the JSON object. It should look like this. So this is a good challenge with using a JSON structure that not necessarily fits what exactly that we want to do with it, right? A common question I got yesterday was how to iterate over an object. So here we have an object with a couple of keys, pandas and miniatures, title, description, photos is an array. So what I'm doing right now, how I'm approaching this is I'm understanding what is my data actually looking like. So if you were there last night at PDAC, this is this is in there. I'm understanding the problem. So I want to save it, import it in my file. Hot link flows. Explore mode, 4 components, an app category, list, photo list, and photo detail. Okay. On the home page, you should list and render the title of each category and link using the keys. For example, Panda Bear should link to /panda. Okay. So let's bring up the example and go, all right, I got to build this. So I'm going to yarn create React app. Is there anything in particular from the homework that y'all have questions about? Params.
Yeah, how to move app data photos and one how to move them. Just do the homework for us.
So expect to have some delay with this morning's lecture notes and everything.
Okay.
What was your question?
The flow of how it because your example earlier today was different as far as going to the web pages and everything than his was. So it's main page and then pictures of page and then it's a page and then page. Go to the page and then picture. You'll do it. I'll just watch.
So the objective of this was to present a single page, right? And then it would list the categories based on the example of the categories, a picture.
Yep.
And if you click on the picture or the panda bears, it would take you to the actual another page which would have just
all the pictures.
All the pictures.
Yeah. And I can click down and say, hey, here we are.
I almost did an HTML and CSS.
So that's not a bad strategy. So one strategy would be just to make these pages in HTML, CSS, and then that's it. And then once you're oh, now I'm going to actually convert this to a React app. Just so you kind of know what HTML, because if you have the HTML, CSS done, that's half the battle right there. So what I would do is oh, I'm going to put all my HTML and CSS inside of app. And then I'm going to add a router to route me to static pages. And then as I have those static pages done, I'm going to slowly convert those to be a bit more dynamic.
There's a lot of refactoring going on though.
There's a lot of refactoring, but now you actually have a static app. You actually have something. Instead of trying to dive into it React Router first, and so get all the wires hooked up. A perfectly valid approach is to go in and actually code it up HTML-wise, and then make it dynamic.
Should have done that then.
Yeah, and that's actually how we suggest approaching your final projects. Is to code up the HTML first, so you actually have something, and then you worry about making it dynamic. So. And a reminder, in case you weren't here, tomorrow we're doing our initial pitches for our final projects at 11. If you have any questions about that, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know. Not now.
Completely verbal.
Completely verbal, no slides, no nothing set in stone. It should go along the lines of, hey, I want to build this for my final project. It's going to do, I think it should do kind of this, this, and this, and that's about it. So a good example would be, we had a student, she built an app that lists popular swimming places in Pinellas County. She's like, I'm going to build a website that has a list of places to go swim. It's going to have a way to get directions to that place from where you are, and that's about it. And we'll go, yeah, that's great, or no, that's not great, or here's our concerns, and that's it. Nothing too crazy. That's tomorrow. I don't know how I got on that, but that's tomorrow. Can I have someone do me a favor?
Yep.
Remind me at 11:55 to ask a question.
Okay.
To 11:55.
Ask a question. Ninja. All right.
Maybe the code word?
And then he'll be like, ooh, I remember.
Ninja. All right. So a question.
Yeah, I was, what else? Yeah, I went into yesterday you sent a link that took us to, I think, cohort 8
Yes.
projects.
Yep.
I saw some of them were like collaborating,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 persons doing
Yep.
the
You're
same
allowed to work
project.
in groups. Yep.
So you're allowed to do that?
Yeah. If you want to work in groups, work in groups. That's fine too.
Okay.
So if you don't have an idea, that's why we're kind of doing pitches as well. Be like, hey, I don't have an idea. I'm looking to partner with somebody. Which is fine.
Say 11:55.
11:55.
Hey Siri, set a timer for 11:55.
Remind me to say ninja.
I can't set the timer for a specific time.
We have a
Should I
dude.
set alarms? I set your timer alarm.
That was
0. That was funny.
Just the way you said that was just like so like I don't know.
I mean,
Things I like. So we have things I like. So we have some sort of title here, and we have 2 things here. Are we done installing yet? So the first thing we're going to do, we know we're going to be working with multiple pages, so we're going to be needing to install React Router. So yarn add React Router DOM. Now let's open her up. And let's start it. Make sure that the template works. It should, but I was like just to kind of start to be like, hey, what do I got? And I got cool. I got this. So now, without even thinking about the pages, hooking it up or routing it or anything like that, I look at this and go, okay, I need a header, probably 2 headers, and I'm going to need a section for my Panda Bear, for my images, which each one of those is going to have its own section. So I'm going to take the HTML first approach here. I'm just going to throw everything inside of my app. I'm just going to make sure my app looks reasonably like this. Okay?
So you say when you say each object needs its own section, you're talking about the physical
Yep. So
section.
each, like this is going to be a section, this is going to be a section, kind of thing.
Would you put it in a table? Would that be satisfactory?
I like to think in sections. If you want to think in tables, I'm not going to stop you. But sections lend itself to being a bit more dynamic, a bit easier than a table structure. And dynamic is good for a responsive website.
Okay.
So we're going to have our title here.
You too, man.
Oh, yeah. Things. Let me type this out. Jason likes. Is that good? Okay. So they're going to be in H2. Let's just change the CSS here real fast. Don't need text align center. Let's get rid of that. And then the background color.
You don't need the logo.
I'm not going to need the logo either. There you go. I'll take that. It's good enough, right? The font's different, and maybe we like bolding and stuff like that, but that's fine. Why is that still boldy? Title. Ooh, title. There you go. Okay, I'm done now. I'm done playing with CSS, JavaScript. So we have our header now, and now we have our section, right? So I'm going to give this a class name just to kind of help identify it for us. We're going to call this body. So now I know that everything that is inside of that body tag, that body section tag, is going to be this stuff right here. How are we feeling so far?
Good.
Good? All right. Now we notice, nope, not doing dynamic stuff yet. HTML first. Yep, not getting ahead of myself here. So looking at that, we're going to have, I'm going to create a section that's going to have an image, a header, and a paragraph inside of it. So we're going to have a header, pandas, panda bears, I think that's what it says. Going to have a p tag that has some stuff. And we're going to have an image. That has a source to somewhere out in the wild.
Why wouldn't you create the entire thing as a section, both pictures, and then divide them down into sections? Able to flex it?
Mhm.
You can just flex it without doing that.
Yeah, because I look at that and I go, hey, like this is a group together, like these two items make up something, and then this item by itself is something.
Oh, so you did that? Oh, okay, that's what I was asking. Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you just did just the panda by itself.
No, so eventually what I'm going
There's
to,
a section.
we're just going to go, hey, here's our miniature section now, kind of thing. So I want to undo that. Pandas image. For cheating purposes, I'm going to just steal that image URL and link to it, just so we have it. All right, so now, how did he do this? I'm going to steal his CSS here. There we go. And so now that we have two things that we like, we're going to create one for miniatures, for minis. Right, so now we have all of our content there. And that's kind of the first really big hurdle is like, let's get everything on the page. Yes, we're not pulling it from the JSON object yet, but we know that all this data is inside of that JSON object. So let's get all the content there first. Now let's style this. Then after we style it, let's get it working. Let's actually put it into a component. Make it a little bit more reactive, more React-like. And then we're going to add routing on top of that. That sounds like a good path.
You want to flex it first?
That's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to work on the styling here real fast. So we have class body, display, flex. Then we'll give it some. Inside of that, we'll do .body. The first section, the top level sections will have margin of 1 EM.
What is this? What's greater than that?
Any direct child.
Direct child.
So before we would use like a space, right, to target. That's going to target any section that's inside of that body. So anywhere inside of that tree is going to target. I just want to target the first level of sections beneath it.
And if you wanted, just to follow that thought, if you wanted to have the first section in a certain format, but you want the second section to have a certain format, you would go that body, that, greater than section. No, it couldn't be greater than section.
Two graders.
So you want to target the
If just using that general format,
yeah.
could you do that? Maybe that's a better question. If you wanted to have two different sections with two different formats, could you use that general format?
Could you just give that section a class name?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's at that point that's the best way to go.
Okay.
So we have our panda bears and our minis. Dot body section. Is that right? Yep. Section header. We'll just do font size 2 EM. And we'll also give you all.
Basically saving yourself on naming classes.
Yeah, 3 sections.
Yeah. Border. It was gray.
You can keep going after header.
Yep. There we go. It's close enough, right? So heading back. Okay. So now that we have our HTML done, you know, we're kind of feeling good. We committed because now it's a good, really good, solid, like, yeah, we did this moment. What's a good next step?
Work on the React router.
React router. What did you say?
Well, create the React router portion of it.
So we have the React router would be a good place to go.
You just say make it a component.
Make it a component first. So before we even get to the router, I want to take it one step further and wrap this section that I just made right here into a component. That way, whenever I do get to the React router part, I can just plug that component in.
Oh, I see.
So my component is going to be probably, let's see, what will it be? So here's what's going on in my head right now. So components have to return one element, right? And that's it. So but right now, our one element is our body. And I don't want to just return the body because then I'll have to duplicate the body for every single page. Rita, hi. Sorry, puppy's distracted. Hi, come here. Nope. Nope.
Come here.
Dog?
That's Tony's dog.
Oh,
Never matter.
Tony's here.
Johnny.
Or dog shit.
Okay,
Or her
we have
dog
to
that
be-
comes and drove down it. So I'm going to refactor my CSS a wee bit.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, if you move the whole section, if you might have an issue with the CSS.
Yes. So class name, we'll call this image card. Image card, we'll call that. Yeah. Then over here, anywhere where I have my section, I'm getting there. That way, what I can do is made a breaking change, make sure it works. It still works. That's good. What's my console saying? Oh, image. Okay. So yeah, so now I'm going to create a component for this. So what should this component be called?
Category list.
Category list.
That's
Hmm.
what we said.
Yeah, that's what
That's what one of the
Homework
routes
set.
is.
Head back to the assignment. So let's make a category list component here. Component. Is that a file? I made a file. So we have our category list component. And let's move this into the category list. Yep. Then over here inside of our app, category list. And ta-da.
Can you just get rid of that section, class name, body, and just put that in the div?
When did you import?
So there's two questions. So import.
Go ahead, Chris.
So could I, so you're saying
Instead
could
of
I
having
move
the
this
div.
class name?
Yeah, just get rid of the section there. Just have category list there, and then put class name, body into
So-
the div.
I could, but I know going forward that this is going to be where we're going to be switching stuff out. So my router stuff's going to go right here. And the reason why I know that is that if we looked at this page and we click down into, no, why? Broken.
Because header is not a direct path.
Because I know going forward that if I click this, that this is changing. So if I have separated my site out now from my header, my hero images, my banner, whatever you want to call this, to what's going on down there. It's a little bit of planning ahead, I know, but no, like I just as easily could. And now do I have an extra div inside of my oh, that's not my CSS. I was gonna say that looks way too good to my CSS. So yes, now I have an extra div here. Which is fine. As long as it doesn't mess up your CSS.
So you just created an area.
Yep.
Where the other things come in.
Yep.
And if I understand Chris's question was correctly, is that do away with that section and just throw the picture in there.
Mhm.
Then that would, what problem, I didn't understand what problem that led to.
It wouldn't be a problem. It just gives us a nice container to put our stuff in.
And
That's
manage better.
that's unified.
So it's something that you can use to manage the rest of it better. Not
Yep.
that it's wrong per se.
Yeah,
but
it's not
makes
wrong
it
at all.
easier.
Like 100%, we could do class name equals body.
That's not what I meant.
Is this what you meant? Still worked. Still 100% work.
Okay, so I didn't understand what just happened there.
So we removed that section from app.js
Right?
and we put this class name body inside of our category list.
It just gets rid of the div.
Mm-hmm. It just gets rid of a div.
Where does it get rid of the div? If I see a div there.
It removed this section, so this section's gone.
Oh, okay.
Didn't really remove a div.
You remove the
Yeah,
section.
it removed this section.
You can recall the div section. That's fine.
Okay, alright, so,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can do that. But now, if I want to reuse any styles that are specific for the body, I have to reuse that that class name body in each of my components.
okay, so you just kept the category list there so it knows where to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the div, you just moved it over to the other
Yep.
to the column.
So let's work out with this for a second. Just kind of go from there. So now this is awesome. I want to make this a bit more dynamic. Not so much as here's my static HTML. I want to actually feed it information from that JSON file and display it to the screen. So down here in category list, I need to add some data here first. So I'm going to make myself a JSON file of this information. So I made a component folder to house all my components. I'm now going to make a data folder to put my data in. So we'll call this hobbies.json. I want this data folder up there. So I'm just taking the JSON, created a new data folder, kind of help keep my project a bit more organized. And I put my JSON file right smack in there. Feel good so far?
You drag the data folder into this.
The source, yep.
Okay.
So my folder structure is now source. Source has two folders, component and data, and then all the main stuff for the app. So over my category list, I'm going to import, I'll call it hobbies from. Now I want to link to that file. So we've only linked to files that have been in the current directory or in a directory below us, right? So now I want to go up a directory and then down a directory. So it's going to be .data and then hobbies.json.
So the reason you have to go up is because you're in component.
Correct.
And
Because
then you have to go up to the root and then go back down to data.
yep, I have to say, hey, look up one directory. So go from here to here, and then find data, and then find hobbies. It's a relative path.
You go 3 dots, 4 dots, if it's
If I wanted to go 2 up or 3 up, it is a .. per level. So this will take me up.
1 level, 2 level.
Yep. So this takes me up to source. This takes me up to whatever I call the file name. This takes me up to lecture notes, and this takes me up to like whatever I call myself. Yeah. So like you can go very far, but it's all relative to where you are currently. Ooh. Hi.
Doggo.
Yeah, there's a dog here now.
We're still. I'll do. Mark.
There we go.
Stay
Be-
quick map.
Way too adorable. Bark, bark. All right, so category list. We're importing our data now, right? And now we want to display our data. So I like to, let's see. So we could just loop over the hobbies straight up, or we can put it into state. Do you want us to put it into state first and then loop over it, or do you want us to loop over the JSON object?
So before we do that, what's the benefit of putting it into state?
So if we put it in state, we now have the ability to listen for changes and re-render as changes happen.
Yeah, I tried state and kind of failed miserably. I did it without state. But yeah,
Let's do it without state, and then we'll do it with state. That sound good? So doing it without state, just using the JSON file.
Just real quick, what I like to do too that helps me is I make a component will mount or did mount, whatever it's called, and then just console log the data that I'm importing. And then anytime I want to go deeper in the data, I'll console log the next level. So like if I'm going into pandas specifically, I'll do hobbies.panda or hobbies index pandas.
So you do that to be able to watch it in the console.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make sure you get what you're expecting.
So if I head on over here to my console, we have inside of our object, we have pandas and miniatures. We notice it's an object, it's not an array. So that means we need to convert this object to an array or iterate over it in some array fashion. How would we do that? Somebody have any guesses? What? Object.keys. Yep. So down here, inside of our render, object.keys. And what does object.keys give me?
An array of that of the keys.
Yep.
So we can also console log.
Yep. So I'm going to create a quick little object here, what data we're working with, what the keys are. So I like to build anonymous objects in console.logs. That way I kind of get a bit more context of what's going on. So then over here in my console, I can go, hey, here's my full data, but here are my keys. Just so it's not so it gives me a little bit more of context of what I'm printing out. So my keys, object.keys, gives me an array of two things. Of pandas and miniatures, which are the keys to my object. That's really good, because now we have an array, and we can iterate over an array. So I want to do object.keys.map, and we'll go hobby key and I.
Why not just hobby? What's your thought process? Naming convention on this?
Because so the question is why hobby key and not hobby itself? Because hobby is, to me, it's going to say, hey, that's one actual hobby from our hobbies list.
Is that not what it is?
So in my head, hobby is the actual structure, like the whole thing, title, name, description, and pictures.
Okay.
But the hobby key is just
Just
the
the
key
key
for
that.
it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm just naming myself something a little more specific to help make my life a little bit easier. So for each hobby, I want to print out a section, right? Oh. So give this thing a key. Now for the headers, if we take a look, I'm going to get rid of this now. if we take a look at our app currently, we have, well, nothing there yet, which is odd, not what I expected. But if we take a look at our data for pandas, why is that not working?
It's because you didn't return.
Thank you. I would have spent like an hour on that. So we have our panda bears here. We notice that it's printing out. So now I want to go from hobby key to the actual data itself.
Just so we're clear, hobby key in the first iteration is pandas.
Mm-hmm. And then in the second iteration, it's minis. If we wanted to, we could print that out. Just pick the header.
Hobby key dot.
So now that we know that we have pandas on the left and miniatures on the right.
Miniature panda.
It's a miniature panda, which would be adorable.
Miniature pandas.
What?
I like miniature pandas.
Me too. I like red pandas. Those are my favorite. Sorry. So, so now we have the key of which item we're on. Now we want to actually access that item inside of the object and print out its data. So it would be hobbies. And then whatever current key we're on, dot title, right?
And that's from the JSON file.
Yep.
Title.
And I got title because, as Mike pointed out, inside of the JSON, we have title, description, and our photos. So it looks like we're going to be printing out the title, description, and the first photo, right? So it's going to be hobbies, brackets, hobby key, dot title, hobbies, bracket, hobby key, dot description, and hobbies, brackets, hobby key, dot photos, bracket, 0. 1 and then 2.
So you have that under hobbies.json, but you don't have like a component or anything that says like hobbies where you import it from. I mean, you do there, but for the rest of them, it has to be like a class component.
So it's because it's a different type of file. This is a JavaScript file, a .js file. This is a .json file, so it's just data. So there's no classes, there's no functions, there's no methods, there's no nothing special to it. It's just data. So when I import it, it's just whatever's there. So what was the object? Nope, it was hobbies. Description, right? And then for the source, it is hobbies, hobby key, dot photos, 0. Chris, you had a question?
That's dot image or URL after that.
Is it? Okay. Image, capital U? Okay.
All capitals, I think. R and L is capital as well.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that. Is it not okay to just make the JSON an array itself? If we were to go another route,
Yeah,
like instead of doing object.values, or I'm sorry, object.keys,
changing to JSON yourself.
we shouldn't do that. But I'm saying, like, could you?
Could you do it? Yes, you could do it. You could have rearranged this JSON to be a bit more friendlier, 100%.
Yeah.
In fact, if we get there, we might just do that.
But the reason why you wouldn't is because you're supposed to get data as it's given to you. Like an
Assuming,
API.
yes, assuming this JSON is coming from some external source,
You can control.
like an API or maybe there's some like cron job that's continually just producing a JSON object or something like that.
You're just practicing as if it was not.
Yep.
You couldn't manipulate it.
Yep. The idea is that is almost like your source of truth, like here is my JSON structure.
Just like the test we had to prove the other day.
Yep.
Last one. Not the best way, but that's what they asked for.
That's what they asked for. And be like, hey, this is fucked up. V.
No, I was thinking of what Chris was saying in terms of manipulating the JSON data, and if it was an API, just out of curiosity, when you fetch it, you're getting that data.
Mhm.
You can then, since the data is in your control, then you can
Yep.
massage it the way you want.
That's also a really good thing about putting it into state, is that whenever we're converting it from the JSON object to something inside of the state, we can change the format. We can do some manipulation whenever we load it and be like, hey, here's yours format. I don't like that. I'm going to do a little bit of massaging to something that I like better. That makes my life a lot easier.
So just a question. If your right now the data is an object. Right?
Yes.
But if your data came up as an array, I think we did have that problem in which we used object to make it into an object to make our life easier.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be the standard approach, or?
The best approach is to use the data that's coming in. I've developed a habit of converting it to a format that I would like to work with. And that's this idea of designing and coding. It's called coding against a contract, saying that I can accept any form of data as long as it's in this form. So as long as everything in my application from here over, whatever that is, accepts this format of data, I just then have to write converters or plugins to convert data into this format, and then it'll work.
Right. So if it's an array and you accept it as an array, then all you would have to do is just use map.
Yes.
Just take the data and then do map.
Yep.
Okay.
So now we have a dynamic site based on the JSON file, right? Cool.
So, wait, go back to the JSON file again one more time.
Yeah.
So are you just saying import hobbies from hobbies.json because that's the name of it,
You can name it.
and it just
I can name it. Yeah. Yep.
Import data, import JSON.
Name it Lexi.
I can name this.
Import Lexi.
With a Y.
Or why?
Oh, you put it on.
Oh.
So,
Well, that is true.
so I can name it anything I want.
Hey.
and it's just gonna pull everything from the
Yep.
data file.
Yep.
It's just a handle.
Yep. It's just
Oh,
it's just a
okay.
variable, a
It's just-
handle, whatever you want to call
From
it.
them onto
It's
the
not saying let variable name equal
Yep.
something. You're just defining a variable.
Basically, make it a connection.
All right. So how we feeling?
Okay.
Set state.
I'm actually not going to set state. We'll take a 7-minute break, and we will come back and work on the React router.
Why?
Because it's 10:53.
No. Everybody's.
Well, that actually made more sense going